by the military-industrial complex.
It could be seen to move violently forward, violently forward, violently forward.
I'm just a patsy.
When they attack.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAC.
Well, you have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so that's not so bad.
Exactly.
So I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
And I'm back. I should put myself in the middle here. Gotta figure this out. Welcome, everybody. I published a couple of stories last week. One on Tucker Carlson, another one on Sasha Latypova. And what I did is I analyzed their speech. And what I wanted, let me pull up the Tucker Carlson piece. Here we go. Tucker Carlson. Share. So here's the Tucker Carlson piece. And in the first sentence I wrote, there are so many neurolinguistic tells in Carlson's recent 4-point monologue that I could write thousands of words just on NLP without touching the larger frame of EpiWar. So in this piece, I wrote about EpiWar. And for those who are just catching up, EpiWar, as I define it, is the control of the knowledge space around us. So while many people like to argue about things left and right, or Republican and Democrat, or conservative and liberal within those frames, what they don't realize is that those frames are artificial and that they've been constructed so that people will have their arguments within those frames. And that if you go meta, if you chunk up and you start to look at everything from a much higher level, then you can start to see those frames. And so that's what this article was about. But there was also a tremendous amount of neurolinguistic stuff that was going on inside the monologue by Carlson. And so what I thought I would do today is that I would just step through it sentence by sentence. But before we do that, I just want to let everybody know that, if you want to support this channel, the best way to do that is to go to thedukereport.substack.com and become a paying subscriber. I don't charge for any of my content on Substack, but it is how I generate revenue in order to keep this thing going. And so if you find this stuff valuable, please do that. If you don't want to become a regular subscriber, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/The Duke Report, and you can just buy me a coffee. Or if you look at the links on the top of the website, I'll go back to the homepage here. You can see that there's a shop link, and you can go and you can buy T-shirts, and there's different ways that you can support the channel. And then Jessica has also included the link to buy my book on Amazon, Stealth Power and the Illusion of Democracy, on at Amazon.com. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can support this channel, and I appreciate everything that anyone can do. There's no pressure. If you don't have the wherewithal to be able to do it, then continue to enjoy the content. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an introduction, first of all, to what this video is. So my buddies over at National File, I'm friends with the guys who run National File. And I've been talking to the guys at National File about this for, I don't know, over a year now. But I saw that they just kind of posted this video up with kind of a attaboy for Tucker. And just to make full disclosure, like, I don't have any animus for Tucker Carlson. I think that he's fine for doing whatever it is that he's doing. I'm not sure that he's completely read in, frankly, on the things that he deletes, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. But he is a member of the Pilgrim Society, which makes him suspect to me. His father was in the Central Intelligence Agency, which makes him suspect to me. And, that's why I don't pay that much attention to him, frankly. But there's a lot of people who do pay attention to him, and they think that he's on our side, whatever that means. And so what I thought I would do today is that I would kind of step through Tucker Carlson's monologue sentence by sentence and clue you into the way that I listen to Tucker. Okay, so with that, I'm going to let me see if I can make.
There's a lot going on in the world right now, but if you're on social media and
okay, there's a lot going on in the world right now. So that may sound like a throwaway line, right? But one of the things that Carlson is really, really good at, I mean, he's one of the world's best people at this, is that he does something called a mere agreement frame when he starts his monologues. And a throwaway line like "there's a lot going on in the world right now" is something that everyone who's listening to him in general is probably going to agree with. Okay, why do I bring that up? Because the way that you combat mere agreement frames, or yes ladders, as some people call them, is that you count the number of times that you're agreeing with somebody at the beginning of whatever it is that they're starting to do. Okay, so there's a lot going on in the world today is something that everyone can agree with. All right, so let's see what the next sentence is, or next phrase, because we're gonna step through this.
of course you are,
Because of course you are. Okay, there's a lot going on in the world because of course. Wait, let's hear what he says exactly. We're like 12 seconds in, right?
There's a lot going on in the world right now, but if you're on social media, and of course you are, because it's really America's only remaining news source,
Okay, because of course you are. Okay, so again, another agreement. Let's just hear this one more.
There's only one story going on.
Okay, hang on. This is called Universal Quantifier.
There's a lot going on in the world right now, but if you're on social media, and of course you are, because it's really America's only remaining news source, you know.
Okay, because of course you are, and it's America's only remaining news source. So, okay, so that is the most compact, hypnotic, mirror agreement frame suggestion that is I can imagine. He's 6 seconds in. Okay, he's 6 seconds in, and he said he's gotten you to say yes twice in your heads, and then he makes a suggestion, and the suggestion is that social media is the only news platform. Or let me get that right. Let's hear it one more time.
There's a lot going on in the world right now, but if you're on social media, and of course you are, because it's really America's only remaining news source, you know.
Okay, because it's America's only remaining news source. Okay, well, I don't know. There's all kinds of I read a lot of books. Like in fact, there's a whole book section. If you go to DukeReportBooks.com, I've added a dozen books in the last week. I've been listening a lot to Robert Frederick over at The Hidden Life is Best. And I've been consuming as many books as that guy recommends as possible. So I think books are another way that you can find out what's going on. And in fact, they might be a better way of finding out what's going on, especially if the things that are impacting us in the news are things that happened 500 years ago. But we're 6 seconds in. And I just want you to understand that he's done two mirror agreement frames and a suggestion that social media is the only way to get news. So I'm going to start this one more time. Here we go.
There's a lot going on in the world right now, but if you're on social media, and of course you are, because it's really America's only remaining news source, you know there's only one.
Okay, because let me do it one more time.
There's a lot going on in the world right now, but if you're on social media, and of course you are, because it's really America's only remaining news source, you know there's only one story going on.
You know there's only one story going on. Okay, so 2 suggestions in 8 seconds. One suggestion is that social media is the only place that you can get information, and that there's only one story on social media. Okay, this is such pitch perfect hypnosis. Okay, I just want you guys to understand this is what hypnosis looks like. This is what natural language hypnosis looks like. All right, and this is why he's so good. He's gotten a mirror agreement frame and 2 suggestions in 8 seconds. Okay, the guy's really good.
And it's Israel.
Oh, it's Israel. Okay, it's not Tyler shooting at Charlie Kirk. It's not Charlie Kirk, or it's not, bombing Gaza, or it's not, any one of the other 500 stories that are going on. It's Israel. Okay, so what he's done is that he has hypnotized his audience at this point, 10 seconds in, if you're going along with them, to believe that Israel is the one story that everyone is talking about.
Everyone online is arguing about Israel.
Everyone is a universal quantifier. Everyone means every person on social media. So there's only one story, and everyone is talking about that. Okay, this is hyperbolic nonsense, but we continue.
And really, they fall into one of 2 camps.
Oh, and really, they fall into one of 2 camps. We're 16 seconds in. 16 seconds. We got 2 mirror agreement frames, 2 suggestions. Okay, 1 universal. 2 is it 2 universal quantifiers? Yes, because everyone is only talking about one story. That's 2 different universal quantifiers that are being stacked on top of each other. Generally speaking, the word generally is a universal quantifier. Okay, but he's using generally in order to set up a dialectic, a false dichotomy. Here we go.
Generally speaking, so probably the more aggressive side are the deranged Taliban level ethno-narcissists who are.
Okay, so there's Taliban level ethno-narcissists that are telling you
that any criticism of the secular government of Israel is tantamount to blood libel against the Jewish people. And if you think that maybe it was not a great idea to arm Joseph Stalin.
Okay, this is called a subroutine. I'm sorry. I'm getting a every time I start the show, I get a delivery or interrupted, and my dog is barking. So I apologize for that. So let's go back here so that I can put my thoughts back together.
Is tantamount to blood libel against the Jewish people. And if ban level ethno-narcissists.
Okay, let's unpack this here. So he's creating a dichotomy.
Probably the more aggressive side are the deranged Taliban level ethno-narcissists who are telling you that any criticism of the secular government of Israel is tantamount to blood libel against the Jewish people. And if you think that
I don't even understand what he said here about the Taliban. I want to back up here a second.
Probably the more aggressive side are the deranged Taliban level ethno-narcissists who are telling you that any criticism of the secular government of Israel is tantamount to blood libel against the Jewish people. And if you think that maybe it was not a great idea to arm Joseph Stalin, the greatest murderer in history.
Okay, this is called a subroutine. He's talking about the Taliban. Then he's talking about ethno-nationalists and blood libel against the Jewish people. And then he's talking about arming Joseph. Is he talking about arming Joseph Stalin? Hang on a second.
The Jewish people. And if you think that maybe it was not a great idea to arm Joseph Stalin, the greatest murderer in history, then you're a Holocaust denier.
It wasn't a good idea to arm Joseph Stalin. Well, who armed Joseph Stalin? FDR, 120 Broadway, Wall Street. They're the ones who armed Joseph Stalin. So I'm not exactly sure, what the subroutine is about. Maybe somebody in the comments can clue me in.
Shut up. And then on the other side, a group every bit as obsessed with Jews are the people who hate Jews, who are telling you that anyone who's Jewish is bad by virtue of being Jewish. It's a blood thing. Two things are interesting. One, there are very few kind of conventional Christian voices saying.
Okay, so he set up this false dichotomy. There's all kinds of information that's been left out that I write about in the article. Okay, he doesn't talk about how the British Empire overthrew the Tsar and put the communists in power. He doesn't talk about how all of that stuff was funded out of the City of London and Wall Street. He doesn't talk about any of that. This is all kind of like a cartoon world, right, that he's painting. And now he's creating this false dichotomy where everybody in the world is either blaming the Jews for something or they're saying that the Jews can do no wrong, when that isn't actually even the argument. So I continue.
Wait a second. This is a secular government, another country, and it has probably nothing to do with my religion or anybody's religion. And we should never judge people on the basis of their immutable qualities because guilt and virtue are not passed down genetically.
Okay, these things I agree with. I have to say that his conclusion that he comes, the conclusion that he's making, I agree with. Okay, I think that things are immutable, but there's all kinds of stuff that is being left out here. Okay, and I talk about it in my article, and I won't dig too deep into it here, but I will talk about it eventually.
But almost no one is saying that. So you really have.
But almost no one is saying that. No, there's lots of people who are saying it. Okay. There's lots of people who are saying it. There may not be anybody who's saying it in Tucker's Twitter feed. Okay. But there's lots of people who are saying it. So, these things are, it's pitch perfect hypnosis. And then suggestion, false frame, more suggestions, false frame, more suggestions. And we are 1 minute and 18 seconds in.
The ethno-narcissists and the anti-Semites.
Okay, ethno-narcissists and anti-Semites. This is called a spectrum, right? You got ethno-narcissists on one end of a spectrum. Okay, I don't even know what an ethno-narcissist is. This is like a new category to me, right? And anti-Semites. Anti-Semites are obviously people who don't like Semites, but the people who live in Gaza are Semites. So, this term Semite is squishy. And this is part of the epistemological warfare, right? That the people who live in Gaza are Semites, but you're only allowed to use anti-Semite when you're talking about people who dislike Jews. Okay, so all of this stuff is just made up to me. I mean, you might as well be putting, drawing cartoons on a whiteboard with imaginary people, because this is not the way the real world works.
And they're at war with each other.
And they're at war with each other. Well, they're at war with each other on television. There's television will tell you that we landed on the moon. Television will tell you that Osama bin Laden, and Tucker Carlson will tell you that Osama bin Laden blew up the Twin Towers. He's got a new 5-point thing on why 9/11 was a big lie that I haven't really dug into today. But I think that basically what he's saying is that they knew all about Osama bin Laden and they lied to us about it. Well, I think Osama bin Laden is the Lee Harvey Oswald of 9/11. So why don't you talk about Lee Harvey Oswald, Tucker? I'm doing a subroutine. Sorry. Let's go back to Tucker.
That's the online picture.
That's the online picture. Now, that's the picture that you're drawing. Okay. It's a picture that you're drawing. You've done a really good job. Like, you've got a nice set. You've got good lighting. You've got all kinds of stuff. You've been doing this for a long time. Okay. You got your shtick down. Okay. This is Tucker's picture. This is not like the online picture. This is Tucker's picture.
What's even more interesting and maybe even more distressing is that in the U.S. government, the conversation, while much more muted.
Okay, what's even more interesting but much more muted? This is like, have you ever seen the television commercials for the Ginsu knife set? But wait, there's more. You can also get the bamboo steamer. Okay, this is the same kind of idea. It's like you get the hook in, and then you work your way a little bit deeper, and then you work your way a little bit deeper. So let's see what he says.
Is a mirror of this, in that a lot of the conversation is about Israel. Israel, a tiny country in the Middle East. Not
a tiny country in the Middle East. Now this is called, I can't remember what the term is in hypnosis, but what he's doing now is that he's making a size reference. And whenever you talk about how big things are, and Tucker is great at this, okay? He talks about how big things are and how small things are, how big things are, how small things are. When you do that, it puts people into a trance, okay? Because they're trying to imagine how big something is, or how small, how focus in how small it is. So he's very good at that.
Not critical to our national security, by the way.
Okay, they're not critical to our national security. Here we go. Well,
the conversation, while much more muted, is a mirror of this, in that a lot of the conversation is about Israel. Israel, a tiny country in the Middle East. Not critical to our national security, by the way.
Not critical to our national security. Here, I totally agree with Tucker. Israel isn't critical to our national security. However, the division of the army of the military that is dedicated to protecting the Middle East and the interests of the Middle East is called CENTCOM. It stands for Central Command. Okay. If Central Command was taking care of what was central to the United States of America, Central Command would be in Nebraska, or Central Command would be in Kansas City. Central Command would not be next to the Suez Canal, okay, and the land bridge that connects Africa to Eurasia, okay? CENTCOM is central to the empire, and the United States of America provides the military, the weapons, the blood, and the treasure for the empire, okay? So Israel is not central to American foreign policy, okay? And he's got the wrong map in his head because he's still got the National Geographic map. I got to get a Mackinder map to put up on the wall behind me. But the strategy is strategic. It is purposeful. And the problem is that you've got the wrong frame, Tucker, of who is in charge. Okay. The United States of America is not in charge of the United States of America's military. Okay. The Anglo-American Empire is in charge of the American military, the Israeli military, the British military, and all of their associated intelligence agencies. So Five Eyes and Mossad are all in bed together. Okay, they're all in on this, and your frame is just wrong. So let's continue.
But the conversation, the bandwidth is consumed by questions of Israel. So wherever you stand on Israel, whether you're on one of the two sides just described or neither.
Okay, whether you're on one of the two sides or neither. How about, okay, so now he's expanded the choices, right? You can be on one of those two sides or not on those sides. How about the 25 other sides that you could be on?
One of them, you know in your gut that this is bad. If a country like ours, supposedly the most powerful in the world, is devoting all of its time.
Okay, we know that it's bad. Okay, and most people looking at this, we're 2 minutes in. Okay, and you've been bombarded with this hypnotic stuff. Okay, so mere agreement, and then suggestions, and then dichotomies, and then false dialectics, and then he comes up with a conclusion that sounds reasonable. Okay, and what happens is that you get put into a trance by this stuff because you're trying to juggle all of these ideas at the same time. And then he comes up with something that sounds completely reasonable because it's completely reasonable. Okay. But in order for you to come to the conclusion that it's completely reasonable, you kind of have to just accept what he just said. Okay. You kind of got to swallow that whole fish, right? In order to make yourself feel better about the reasonable conclusion that he's come to. So you've accepted all the false dichotomies. You've accepted the false polarity just because you want to make yourself feel better by agreeing with him at the end here when he sounds like he's being reasonable, because he is. All right.
Internally to conversations about Israel, it's probably not going in a good direction. There's probably a lot being neglected in favor of this very specific boutique conversation.
I think it's curious and amusing to me that he is using the word neglected. There's a lot neglected. Like, yeah, the whole history of the last, I'll just say since 1913, that you are a member of the Pilgrim Society. I'll give Tucker the benefit of the doubt. My guess is that Tucker believes all of the stories that his friends in the Pilgrim Society have told him about the great relationship between Great Britain and the United States. I believe that he probably believes that because he's been surrounded by these people, and he was raised in and around all of these people.
About this tiny little country. It's just not good for anybody, including Israel, by the way. So well,
it's not good for Israelis. It's not good for the people who are in Israel. And I've been reading a book called The Invention of the Jewish People by Shlomo Sand. And it's really funny because I've got a friend who's a good friend. She may be watching right now. And when I told her that I was reading this book, she just went out of her mind. She just went out of her mind. And it's really interesting because it is the third rail, right? Touching people's mythology about the way that countries were created and the history of people. People will hang on to this stuff really hard. And if you find anybody, the thing is about Shlomo Sand is that he's a secular Israeli. He's the professor emeritus of European history, I think, at the University of Haifa. And he wrote this book that I never heard of until a week ago. Even though it was a bestseller, it was on the bestseller list in Israel for 19 weeks, and turns out to be an incredible lightning rod book. But he's got a pretty different opinion about the way that the state of Israel was created, and I think that it's much more in line with the historical facts as I understand them. And so, that entire part of this story is being left out. There we go.
The antidote to this, how do you fix it? Here are 4 things you can do to make the conversation about Israel and the relationship with Israel a lot healthier than it currently is.
Okay. There's 4 things that you can do. All right. So again, I'm going to back up and I'm going to go meta on this, right? When did someone decide that there's 4 things that need to get done? Did this come out of a think tank? Because this is the way that people put TV shows together, right? This is the way think tanks put things together. It's like, well, we have 4 bullet points that we need you to hit on this, and I'm not saying that that's what happened, but that's kind of what it feels like to me. So let's go to point 1 and see what Tucker has.
The first is get some global perspective on what we're talking about.
Okay. Get some global perspective on what we're talking about. So for people who watch this channel, you know that I talk a lot about Halford Mackinder's The Pivot of Geography, the world. Wait, what's the title of it? The Pivot, the geographic pivot of history, I think. You can find it on DukeReportBooks.com. And Halford Mackinder was the president of the council of the London School of Economics, and he made a speech at the Royal Geography Society where he talked about the importance of the Middle East and how important the Middle East is to the British Empire. Okay. And he has a map that shows Eurasia and Africa as what he calls the Great World Island. And when you look at that map and you understand how the thalassocracy, how the Anglo-American establishment look at the world, I probably can pull the map up here. I might even just have it right here available. Let me see. Slides and Mackinder, I'm looking for. Here we go, Mackinder map. Take Tucker out for a second. So if you understand that this is the map, okay, that the people in the city of London and Wall Street use when they look at the world. And I think I might be able to jump forward. And, Mackinder called Russia the heartland because he said that it was, you couldn't attack it and ever be successful. Napoleon proved that and Hitler proved that. And then he calls this ring around it called the inner or, what's he called? Marginal circle. You can see this is where all the wars have happened in this inner circle in the last 200 years. So if you understand this map, then you understand world history for the last 200 years. Okay. This one line that runs around the heartland is where more people have been killed in the last 150 or 200 years than any other part of the planet. Okay. And then he calls this the outer crescent. And of course, we're out in the outer crescent, but he calls this the Great World Island, right? And the Great World Island is where in the Great World Island, in the middle area here, he calls the land of 5 seas. Okay. And if you look at the CENTCOM patch on for the United States Central Command, it has the Mackinder's land of 5 seas on the patch. Okay. And it's being protected by that Roman eagle that we think is America. Okay. And if you want to look at where all the conflict in the world is right now, you can look at where the landmass of Africa hits Eurasia. Okay. And so, just to paraphrase Mackinder for a second, Mackinder said that you can't have Eastern Europe and Western Europe get together. And you certainly can never have the Africans get together with the Eurasians, because if they did, and they built these things called railroads, a 200-year-old technology, then you wouldn't have to move all of the commerce over the blue part of the map, over the water, which is what provides the thalassocracy with its power base. Okay. So moving goods over water is the name of the game. Okay. And if people can move their goods, if they can move their oil via pipelines or railroads, if they can transport all of their food and merchandise over railroads instead of ships, then the thalassocracy loses its purchase. They lose their ability to control things. And that is why it's been going on for over 200 years. That's why all of these wars are happening. So I'm going to take this out. I'm going to jump back to Tucker.
The United States is a nation of 350 million people. It has some of the deepest natural resources in the world. That would include energy and water, agricultural products. The United States, however it's managed, is a powerhouse globally and always will be because its strength is inherent. It's a huge, decisive country.
Yeah, and that's why Francis Bacon, advising Queen Elizabeth 500 years ago, said, we have to go take North America because they have all of this stuff. And if we want to take over the world, we need to be able to defend ourselves better than we can here on these English islands.
In the scope of world history, the United States makes things happen. Israel is not an insult, merely an observation. By contrast, is a tiny and inherently insignificant country, at least geopolitically, in that it has only 9 million people.
Okay, so this is a completely false argument. Okay, it is not. I showed you this. Okay, it's not about the number of people you've got. Okay, right here, this bottom little red arrow here. Okay, is where the land bridge of Africa meets the land bridge of Africa, goes across the Sinai Desert. Okay, and the Suez Canal cuts it in half. The Suez Canal is not just a canal. It's a trench. It's a trench that separates Africa from Eurasia. Okay. And they don't want, there's no trains that connect Africa to Eurasia. There's no trains that connect North America to South America. Okay. This is a 200-year-old technology. There's no train that connects Alaska to Russia across the Bering Strait. The technology is there. The technology has been there for 200 years to be able to do this. Okay. The people who control the blue parts of this map do not want people who live on the white parts of this map to get along, because if they did, they wouldn't be able to leverage their advantage. Their advantage is navies, shipping, insurance, and finance. Okay. That's what makes the thalassocracy work. Okay, so I don't know if Tucker doesn't know this or whether or not he's lying. I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question, but I can tell you that what he's saying isn't what's real.
And no natural resources, no meaningful natural resources. So it is insignificant. It is also physically tiny. It's about the size of New Jersey, famously, but it has a much smaller GDP than New Jersey.
It doesn't have a much smaller GDP than New Jersey because a lot of the private, people get confused about private equity, which is money that is off the books, and public equity, which is stuff that's in stock markets, right? So the way that the Federal Reserve Bank works is that the Federal Reserve of the United States of America is owned by the stockholders. The stockholders of the Federal Reserve Bank of America are the Federal Reserve branches. And the branch that owns more stock than any other branch of the Federal Reserve is the New York Federal Reserve. And the New York Federal Reserve is privately held. Meaning, and you're not allowed to know who the stockholders are of any of these Federal Reserve banks. So you have European interests. Okay. Many of them live in Israel. Many of them are the same interest, the Rothschilds, for example, who created Israel. Okay. Have controlling interest of the bank that issues all of the money, all of the debt for the United States of America. So it's completely disingenuous to look at something like GDP and say that they've got say that A, they're not financially significant, and B, that they can't compete with us. This is a false argument. All right. It's a false argument.
It is a much smaller economy than the state of New Jersey. It's an economy about the size of the state of Arizona and almost one half the economy of the state of Massachusetts or Illinois. It just doesn't really matter, actually. If you're looking at a map and thinking through, where does power politics go? Israel's not even on the list.
Okay, this is just patently false. Okay. So is he lying? Is he dumb? Is he ignorant? I don't know what the answer to the question is. Okay. But I know that this isn't true. Okay.
Again, it's tiny. It's got the population of Burundi.
Okay. Again, he keeps adding on, like, this is really good hypnosis, though. Okay. Because for people who don't know these facts, then what they're doing is they're going, oh, yeah. Again, he's going back to the mere agreement frame, right? He loves the mere agreement frame. He's so good at it.
It's got a smaller population than Belgium. Like, what is this anyway? And yet, despite its objective insignificance.
Okay. Now he's making it's objective insignificance. He's saying that by any objective measure, it's insignificant. All right. Well, clearly that's not true. Okay. Clearly it's not possible to believe that if you just look at the events that are happening. Okay. If they're insignificant, why are we sending them all these weapons? If they're insignificant, why are they giving all of these American politicians money? Okay. They're not insignificant. They're significant. Okay. The real question is, why are they significant? And again, my answer is not the answer that you get from most people. My answer about why they're significant is because Israel is a tool of empire. They are a tool of the British Empire. Okay. And it doesn't really have anything to do with Judaism or Jews or anti-Semitism or any of that stuff. It has to do with empire and controlling the geographic region and making sure that as many people are not getting along as possible, because that meets all of the business goals that are driving all of this. When we used to work in technology, we always talked about business drivers, right? There are business drivers that are driving this, okay, which make Israel incredibly significant. And if you don't understand what the business drivers are, then you can say something like this. But I don't think Tucker's that dumb. I'm sorry. I don't think you get to where although, I don't know, he's born with a silver spoon. So let's go.
It is the focus of the conversation, but it's also the focus of the spending. So right now, as we speak tonight, there are 2 THAAD missile batteries in Israel. That's 1/4 of the world's total supply of THAAD missile batteries. The THAAD missile battery is an American-made, very high-tech missile battery that takes incoming missiles out of the sky. And 1/4 of the world's entire supply of these is in Israel right now, manned by U.S. troops, by Americans, in uniform or not. They are American military personnel, and they are manning these batteries to protect Israel. And that shouldn't surprise you, because since October 7th, 2023, which is a little less than 2 years ago, the United States has spent at minimum $30 billion defending Israel. Huge. And for some perspective, the entire Israeli military budget before October 7th was about $25 billion.
Again, he puts a number up there with lots of zeros, and I hear 25 billion or 30 billion, and I think, yeah, that's a lot of money in the scope of things. But when you look at the $23 trillion of money that's missing, Catherine, if you go to missingmoney.solari.com, there's $23 trillion missing from the United States of America's budget, meaning it's just gone, unaccounted for, spent on something, but they can't tell, your government can't tell you what it was spent on. Okay. What's his name? Secretary of Defense on September 10th, 2001, Rumsfeld announced that there was $2.6 trillion from just the Pentagon missing. And on September 11th, the 65 people that were in the accounting department at the Pentagon that were working on the audit to find out where the $2.6 trillion went, all died when an airliner hit the Pentagon. Okay. So 25 billion, 30 billion. Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of money. Show me where the $23 trillion are, Tucker. And by the way, why haven't you talked about, has he had, somebody can answer me in the chat. Has Tucker had Catherine Austin Fitts on yet? You know, people love to like post memes about Ben Carson. Ben Carson was at HUD for 4 years on Trump 1, right? Catherine Austin Fitts reported that there was over $6 trillion missing from the HUD budget in 96. Okay. Did Ben Carson ever talk about that? No, nothing. Crickets.
So the United States has put at least $30 billion into defending Israel in less than 2 years. Over the course of its existence.
Okay. I would argue that the United States has spent $30 billion in providing Israel with weapons to bomb Palestinians. Okay. Framing it as defense is disingenuous.
A little less than 80 years, the United States has put $300 billion, at least, those are just the on-books numbers, into supporting Israel. 300.
Again, that's less than 10%. That's a little bit more than 10% of the money that Donald Rumsfeld said was missing from the Pentagon budget in 2001.
$100 billion. Israel is by far, no one comes close, the largest recipient of U.S. aid over time and currently. So anyone who says, oh, it's just a drop in the bucket, it's totally insignificant, is lying or doesn't know the numbers. By the way,
are you lying or you don't know the numbers? Okay, so that's a dichotomy. They're lying or they don't know the numbers. Okay, they could be misinformed. They could be uninformed. There's all kinds of reasons why. Tucker, what's your reason? What's your reason for not saying that it's a drop in the bucket compared to the money that's that Donald Rumsfeld announced was missing on September 10th, 2001?
Number 2 is Egypt. So why are we spending so much money on Egypt? Well, we're doing.
Number 2 is Egypt. And what are we doing in Egypt? Okay, everybody. Okay, here's a question, class. What are we doing in Egypt? What is Egypt next to? Egypt is next to Israel. What desert runs through Egypt? It's right next to Israel. Oh, it's the Sinai Desert. Oh, the Sinai Desert. You mean that piece of the land bridge that connects Africa to Eurasia? Is that what you're talking about, Tucker? Because people who can look at a map, they know what it is. Okay, it's not. This isn't. You don't have to be what's the old joke? You don't have to be a rocket mechanic, right? I'm kidding. There we go.
Doing it at the request of Israel. So you could probably add that to the tally. It's not an attack. It's merely perspective. We are spending our time, our money, and we're taking enormous risks on behalf of a country that geopolitically is not significant at all.
Yeah, I think that he's sort of right here, but the country is Great Britain. And again, I want to say this loud and clear. I don't think the people who are the citizens of any of these countries are at fault right now. I don't believe that the people of Israel elected Bibi Netanyahu. I don't believe that the people of the United States elected Donald Trump. I don't believe that any of these people are elected. I believe that they are cast the same way that TV show, the characters in TV shows are cast. And so I don't hold the people of Great Britain responsible, although I would like it if they decided that they would start blaming the city of London instead of Westminster for their problems right now. So I digress.
The interesting thing is most Americans have no idea that this is true. They don't know how disproportionate our attention to Israel and our spending on Israel is relative to the rest of the world. And if you want some sense of how
and I would say, look in the mirror, Tucker, because if you actually believe what you're saying, you're completely misinformed.
Disproportionate. India and China combined, neither of which is a strong ally at the moment, combined represent more than a third of the entire world's population. Both are rivals economically, both are rivals militarily, at least potentially. And our relationship with them has gotten worse, or is at the very least languished, because of our relationship with Israel, because of the bandwidth consumed by tending to it, and also because of some of the inevitable conflicts that have arisen because of our support for Israel, which is engaged in an extremely controversial, which is to say hated war in Gaza, which is not even really a war. It's a massive displacement of people and killing on a grand scale of unarmed people, of unarmed combatants, of civilians, of women and children. And the world sees this, and the world rejects it, and the world hates it. And so Israel's really last remaining ally of size, other than the UK, is the United States.
Other than the UK. It's like, yeah, because we were talking about the Anglo-American establishment. And when I say that, I mean the people who own the controlling interest of the Fortune 2000. Okay. This is what we're talking about. All right. These are the people who are in control, all right, of the government, of the military, of the financial system, of all of these things. And to make this into like this, it's a national thing, or it's a religious thing. It's just ludicrous.
And so there's a huge cost to this. But again, most Americans have no perspective on just how disproportionate our commitment is, because they marinate in lies about this.
Okay. And again, I think that at this point you have to ask the question, who's our? Okay. We have this phony frame that it's the United States, because the United States is the people who are writing the checks and sending the things over, but they're not in control of their own government. Okay. We're not in control of our own military. Okay. And we haven't been for 100 years. We wouldn't have gotten into World War I. We wouldn't have gotten into World War II. We would not have become the arsenal of democracy. Okay. If Francis Bacon hadn't talked Elizabeth I into it. Okay. If the Federal Reserve Bank were not created on December 23rd, 1913, that wouldn't have happened. Okay. This is all a charade. This is Plato's cave. This is shadows on the wall that he's talking about. And I don't know if he believes this or not. I don't,
It's relationship, mostly from our political class, also from the media, but really, if you were to lay,
what about the education? What about 100 years of education that's been impacted by Oxford and Cambridge and Harvard and Yale and Princeton and Stanford, to completely Hoover Institute, to completely skew world history for the last 500 years in order to be able to pull this off?
the blame on one group in the United States. It's our elected leaders who continuously lie to us.
Okay, this is the joke. Okay, this is the punchline. Okay, it's the elected leaders. They're not elected. Okay, the elections are fake. Okay, if they were elected, you could hold them accountable. But the whole idea of the elected leaders, the reason that they've been created by this oligarch class is so that we can blame them when the oligarchs do things that we don't like. That's what they're the rodeo clowns. Okay, Congress and the Senate and the Supreme Court and the President of the United States, they have been reduced to rodeo clowns. I don't think that that's the way they started. I don't think that's the way that James Madison and Alexander Hamilton and Benjamin Franklin and George Washington thought it was going to go, but they are rodeo clowns. Okay. They are there to take our abuse. Okay. And if you're blaming them, you're not aiming high enough.
About the nature of this relationship, its significance, and they do it generationally. They've been doing it for many decades. Here, and this is just one example, but the most fun to watch. This is Nikki Haley at the Republican presidential primary debate 2023, describing the United States' relationship with the state of Israel. Watch.
Last thing we need to do is to tell Israel what to do. The only thing we should be doing is supporting them and eliminating Hamas. It is not that Israel needs America. America needs Israel.
Who created Hamas? And people will say Israel created Hamas. Great Britain created Hamas. British intelligence. Okay. British intelligence created Hamas. British intelligence created Israel. Okay. This is called a dialectic. This is called a false dichotomy. False dichotomy doesn't mean people are not getting killed. They're getting killed. Okay. But you're all being played if you're mad at Hamas. This is why Jesus said, love your neighbor, love your enemy, because his assumption was that we were in an epistemological war. And if people are hating you and wanting to kill you, it's probably because they've been lied to as much as you've been lied to.
It is not that Israel needs the United States. The United States needs Israel. How could that possibly be true? It is in no sense true. In fact, it's one of those lies that's not 3 degrees off the truth. It is a complete inversion of the truth. And the truth, which is...
And an inversion is an indication of Gnostic influence. Okay. Whenever you see inversions, when you see people who say that men are not men or women are not women, okay, these are inversions. These are all Gnostic inversions. Okay. And Francis Bacon was a Gnostic. Okay. Watch Robert Frederick's channel. Listen to it. The Hidden Life is Best. Okay. This is a 500-year-old thing, but the inversion is the pattern. It's the tell that you can see the Gnosticism. Okay. And the fact that Tucker isn't calling this out is bothersome. Okay.
It's obvious to anyone who looks at the numbers or is paying any attention at all is that Israel could not survive without the United States. That's not...
Okay. I'm paying attention. The people who are watching this channel right now are paying attention. The person that I don't think is paying any attention is Tucker. Okay. Because if tell me about McKender, Tucker.
An argument for pulling all aid to Israel. It's just an acknowledgement of the physical reality. Israel fights its wars with American backing, with the guarantee, the implied defense guarantee.
They both fight the wars for the empire, for the Anglo-American empire.
That we have provided for so many years, since at least 1973. 50
since 73. Well, no.
Years. And its social services are made possible, which are quite generous, made possible by American subsidies. In other words, every dollar that goes to the Israeli military from the United States is a dollar that the nation of Israel can spend on its own people. And so there is no world in which America needs Israel more than Israel needs the United States.
Okay, but the empire needs them both. That's the answer to the test, Tucker. The empire needs them both.
And of course, Nikki Haley was never asked to explain how exactly that could be true. What are you talking about, Governor Haley? Not one person asked her that question. And no one asked her that question because
no one asked her that question because, okay, because is a word. Scott Adams talked about this long before I did. Okay, but because is a word that almost always, and I'm using universal quantifier, indicates a complex equivalence. So let's hear what the complex equivalence is that Tucker uses.
In whose mind that question appeared would have paused for fear of being attacked as an anti-Semite for asking a question about geopolitics. That has been the state of play in the United States for my entire life, over 50 years. Politicians make nonsensical statements. Nobody wants to even ask a follow-up question for fear of being attacked. It is a state of perpetual intimidation.
Well, it's because they don't ask the question. Okay, they don't ask. Do I sound like an anti-Semite? My friend who is flipping out, by the way, I'm half Ashkenazi, but I'm half Ashkenazi on my father's side, which in the state of Israel would mean that I'm not a Jew. If I was in Germany in the 1930s, Hitler would call me a Jew. But if I was in Israel today, the Israelis would not call me a Jew. Okay, so it's a clown world definition, right? The whole thing is a clown world definition, and I just think that this is an incredibly false frame, and I'm losing track of my thoughts. So I'm just going to listen to Tucker again.
Everybody's afraid of Israel, afraid of the topic, afraid.
Okay, yeah. Here's what I wanted to bring up. Everybody's afraid of Israel for being anti-Semite. Have I said anything anti-Semitic? Have I said anything that makes me sound like I don't like Jewish people or I'm not Jewish? I'm half Ashkenazi. Okay, so am I a self-hater because I keep pointing out that this is a geopolitical thing that has to do with a map that we don't have in our elementary school, junior high school, and high school geography classes? Okay, that we don't put up, that our our 8th grade history teacher doesn't put this map up on the wall and explain to us that this is the way that the world works, because this is the map they use. Okay, this is the map that the globalists use. Okay, so I find a lot of this just to be completely disingenuous. And I guess the big point here of looking at this clip is that this entire frame is fake. It's a fake frame. Okay, and what epistemological warfare is about getting you to argue within the frame. So if I pick any of the points that Tucker is making and I spend 5 minutes arguing with him on his show about it, then people think that that's what the argument is about. But the reason that you have to chunk up, the reason that you have to back up, the reason that you have to look at the big picture when you look at this stuff is because if you get caught in these pissing matches, okay, over details that don't have anything to do with what's really going on, you're just going to waste all your time and energy, and you're not actually ever really going to understand what's going on. And so for my friends at the National File, when you swallow this stuff whole and you shove this garbage out into the world as something that somebody should believe, then I have to question how much you know. All right.
Some cases of the state itself, we have not had an honest conversation about this ever.
Yes, that's no truer words have ever been spoken. So when you want to have an honest conversation about this, Tucker, when you want to have Guido Preparata on your show, Tucker, when you want to have Richard Grove or James Corbett or William Engdahl or any of the or the guys who wrote Two World Wars and Hitler, when you want to have those guys on your show instead of some clown like Victor Davis Hanson, okay, then let me know.
Certainly not in my lifetime.
Yeah, well, you're not reading the right books.
And that suits the Israelis just fine. And if you're wondering why there's an awful lot of lunatic anti-Semitic comment about Israel online,
it's because the people who are creating it want you in that frame.
You have to wonder how much of that is organic. Some of it, of course, there are always haters, but how much of it is not organic at all?
It's not, none of it's organic. Okay. I mean, there are entire religions that have been created by the British Empire. Okay. It's none of this is organic. You know what's organic? Loving your neighbor. That's organic. Okay. You know what's not organic? Wanting to kill your neighbor. Okay. Wanting to kill somebody for immutable characteristics. That's not natural. That has always been ginned up.
How much of that, the lunatic, all Jews are evil, how much of that is being ginned up on purpose to make legitimate questions about the U.S. government's relationship with the government of Israel seem like crackpot stuff, like hate, like David Duke level lunacy? Probably some, because it serves their interests.
A lot. 99, I would say 99%.
Now, that is a criticism of the state of Israel and its incredibly sophisticated propaganda campaign, which, again, the rest of us have been marinating in for a long time.
Okay, but the genius of it is that it doesn't come out of Israel. They're not the Israelis are not creating anti-Semitism. They let the Americans at the ADL do that. Okay, they let the Americans at the FBI do that. They let they job it out. The Anglo-American Empire jobs it out. They can't have the CIA blow up the Twin Towers, Tucker. So they hire Mossad to do it. Okay. But the CIA and Mossad are both working they're both serving the same master, the Anglo-American establishment.
But the true villain here, I would argue, is not the state of Israel, the Jews. It's the United States. It's our leaders who are putting up with this. Israel is a small country.
It's our leaders who are put into power using money, ideology, compromise, and ego, or family. Okay, that's how they're controlled once they've been selected. Okay, but we didn't pick them. Look at Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. Well, look at Pete Hegseth. Okay, these people are like cast. It's like, what's his name? The guy the executive producer of Survivor and The Apprentice, Mark Burnett. Mark Burnett probably has more power than anyone in the government. I'm just guessing because I think that all of these people are cast. They're not elected.
With very limited resources, and it is doing its best to serve its own interests. You'd think every country would act that way, and most do. But there are some that don't, and ours would top that list. And so the true shame here, the actual villain in the story.
Okay, this is the suggestion. Okay, so all of this stuff is a big setup. Okay, he's done all this scaffolding. He's created all these dichotomies. He's done all of these mere agreement frames, and he's done all of this stuff to kind of put you into a trance. So if you've been watching this for 8 minutes and 41 seconds without stopping, okay, and you like Tucker, you're going to swallow whatever he's about to say whole.
Is the leadership of the United States that is putting up with serial humiliation for decades. And for what reason? So if there's someone to be mad at, it's our leaders. And that leads to the second thing.
That's true. Okay. That's true. Okay. But again, this is one of my issues with these videos is that the conclusions that he comes to, I have a general agreement with him about, but the way that he goes about it, I have big problems with. Okay. It is the leaders. Okay. But the unsaid thing here is that those leaders are there because we chose them. Okay. And my argument is that we did not choose them. And, you know, people like Tucker can't say that.
That we can do to fix this truly unhealthy relationship, this poisonous relationship, which is getting worse, by the way. It's breaking our society into pieces. It's truly hurting the Trump administration.
All right. So let's see. We're an hour and 6 minutes in. I've gone through 1 of 3. So I'm not sure. I got to open a window. Hang on a second. Hang on, everybody. It gets warm in here when the windows. Professional show business. Here we go. Let's go to the next clip. And I talk about all of this 120 Broadway and CENTCOM and all of these things. If you go to my story.
The second thing we can do after getting global perspective on what we're actually talking about here, a tiny country that is in the deepest sense insignificant to the United States. The second thing we can do is get some freaking self-respect and stop being ordered around by a client state. That's not good for us. It's not good for them.
Again, they're not ordering us around. Okay. They're being told to order us around because this is a school play.
It's not good for anybody. It's like being screamed at by your children. No normal parent would allow that.
It's great hypnosis. He put the picture in your head about like being screamed at like your children. No parent would allow that. This is boom. It's really good hypnosis.
Because it's totally destructive.
It's because it's totally destructive. No, again, he's gotten you. Okay, he's done so good. He painted this picture in your head of a kid yelling at their parent, and then he's sold you on the idea that it's totally destructive. Okay, if you agree that it's totally destructive, then you have to already agree to the illustration that he created, that it's the same as a child being screamed at by their parent, which is not true, which is not what the situation is. It's not how it happened. But he ends with something that you want to agree with, because a kid being yelling at their parents is destructive. Okay. So what happens is that you let go of the slippery part, which is the illusion that the two things are the same, and you grab on to the thing that he said that's true, which is that a kid yelling at their parents is destructive. And now all of a sudden that idea is in your head. The next night when you're at a cocktail party, you're using this illustration to explain why Israel to your neighbor. Okay, why Israel shouldn't be pushing the United States around. It's completely false, right? But it was that It was that story about the kid yelling at the parent and how that was destructive that wound up cementing that in your psyche as the thing that you remember. It's genius. It's really good.
Not good for you, and it's not good for the child. And that is exactly the relationship that we have with the state of Israel.
Okay. It's not, but he's just done a really good job of this. This is pitch perfect hypnosis. This is really good. We're 33 seconds in again. And that means I'm a Freemason, Jason Goodman.
In fact, not in theory, in fact, it is a huge country and a tiny country. The huge country supports the tiny country. And that's a pretty nice thing to do.
Okay. Well, again, this is a story. It's a cool story. It's not a true story, but it's a cool story.
Whether it's wise or not is a whole separate conversation. But if you're going to have that,
about whether it's true or not,
that relationship, a parent to a child, you cannot be yelled at, humiliated, spied upon, bossed around by the child.
This is Rachel Maddow talking about how if you don't get vaccinated, you're going to kill grandma. This is the exact same ploy.
By the person in the inherently subordinate position. You can't do that. You can't be shamed into ignoring things.
Inherently subordinate. Inherently subordinate. Well, inherently means you were born into that, right? You were born into the subservient position. That's kind of empire talk, I think. I think that's not Christian.
They're quite clearly not the behavior of a subordinate ally to a big brother ally. For example, spying on the country.
A subordinate ally to a big brother ally.
Country that makes your economy and your defense possible, which the Israelis have been doing for generations.
The Israelis have been, they've been spying on us because they spy on us when the CIA can't spy on us, then we get the Mossad to spy on us, or we get MI6 to spy on us. When MI6 needs somebody to spy on somebody in the UK, they get Mossad or they get the CIA to do it. Okay. Or they get the Aussies to do it. Or when the Aussies need someone spied on, they get somebody from New Zealand or Canada to do it. This is the way the game is played. That's why it's called Five Eyes. It's a deck chair shuffling game. Okay. They all work for the same people. They all work for the Anglo-American establishment. They all work for the empire.
It's a fact. One of them very famously was caught, Jonathan Pollard, who's an American citizen, taking real secrets, like actual military secrets, and sending them to Israel, which promptly sent a bunch of them to the Soviet Union, which was our arch rival, our foe at the time. And that happened, and he went to prison, and then somehow he got out of prison and went to Israel, where he continues to denounce the United States.
Yeah, when he got out of prison, the guy who gave Trump more money than Sheldon Adelson flew Jonathan Pollard to Israel in his private jet. Come on, this is if you understand the way the game is really played, none of this is a mystery. None of this is questionable. It's hilarious.
And anyone who says anything about it is attacked. Oh, you're an anti-Semite.
Do I sound like an anti-Semite? Okay. I'm telling you, the city of London is calling the shots here, and they want the anti-Semites and the Jews and everybody. They want all of these people fighting with one another. Okay. Because it just creates chaos over there. They don't care how many people get killed. Okay. They don't care how many people get killed.
Well, it's nothing to do with anti-Semitism. That's insulting. Why would we ever put up with that? Why would we put up with the attack on the USS Liberty that everyone's so afraid to talk about, clearly targeted on purpose?
Okay, read Blood in the Water by Joan Mellon, a Jew. Okay. Great book. You can go find it at dukereportbooks.com. And you'll find out that not only did the Israelis blow the shit out of the USS Liberty, but they were coordinating with the Pentagon and Lyndon Johnson at the same time. So you can't leave that part of the story out, Tucker. You can't leave that part of the story out. It wasn't just the Israelis that were blowing up the USS Liberty. And the reason that the USS Liberty situation has never been reconciled to the satisfaction of anybody is because the US Pentagon was in on it. Okay, you can't leave that part out. It's not just the Jews blowing up the USS Liberty. It's the Pentagon and the Israelis.
By a country we're supporting, Israel, and it's somehow shameful to say that? Why? Why is it shameful to say that? Who knows why it's shameful to say that? But
Well, yeah, but who knows? Because it's imaginary. It's an imaginary thing.
Shouldn't be. And until we have some self-respect, not anger or hate, but just dignity, it will continue. In June, for example, during the 12-day war, such as it was with Iran, the U.S. and Israel versus Iran, bombing on all sides, during that short conflict, IDF officers in the Pentagon, foreign military officers in the Pentagon, and by the way, they're not the only foreign military officers in the Pentagon, to be clear. There are NATO officers, they're from other countries, British.
Let's just leave this here. Let's just leave it here. Okay. Let's just leave it here. Screenshot it. You know? Yes. Okay. There's Israelis that are yelling. There's British. Because the British go down to the Israelis and they go, we're going into the Pentagon. Why don't you go in and yell at these guys?
But there are a bunch of Israeli Defense Force officers in the Pentagon that week. And during that week, ask anyone who works at the Pentagon, they enraged American Pentagon staff by just barging into meetings, giving orders, making demands.
You have friends at the Pentagon who are telling you this stuff, Tuck.
And nobody did anything about it. How can a foreign military officer barge into military headquarters, even if invited, but barge into a meeting and start demanding, we want this, we want that, you need to get on this?
You know how? Because they can. Because they can.
Huh? The more you allow that kind of deeply unhealthy behavior, the more you're going to get. And that's exactly what has happened.
Is that
because
true?
Of the weak.
Is that true? Or is that just a story? Again, is that true or is that a story? Because I don't think that that's true. I think that there's a story that this happened, and it might have happened just this way. Okay. Or it might have been completely different. And the person who called him up and told him about it on the phone, you'll never guess what just happened at the Pentagon, Tucker. I was in this meeting and blah, 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 blah. The Israelis were yelling at da, 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 da. You know, it's like, whatever.
Of our leaders, we have incited predators in a foreign country to take advantage of us. Oh, that's such an anti-Israel thing. It's not anti-Israel at all. It's a demand that the people whose job it is, whose sacred duty it is to defend and represent us, our leaders, both at the Pentagon and all throughout the U.S. government, that they do that.
They want you to believe
that they stand up and defend us against all potential threats, against all foreign countries to the extent they need to, and that they do not prostrate themselves before a foreign nation.
If this were true, Trump would seize control of the Federal Reserve. He would name Citibank and Chase Manhattan and JP Morgan and Brown Brothers Harriman and Warburg and all of the other stockholders of the Federal Reserve. He would name them enemy combatants, okay, and use the presidential powers that have been increased since Harry Truman on the presidency, okay, and go out and do something about it. And he's not going to. Okay, I know that he could, but I'll tell you why I don't think that he's going to. I'm going to switch bases. I'm going to switch tracks here for a second. And I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go to Windsor Castle. Windsor Castle. And here's Donald Trump kissing Charles's booty. And again, I don't think Charles is the shot caller. I think Charles is a doge. He's the doge of Great Britain. Okay. He has been installed. The Windsor family, the Saxe-Coburg-Gothas have been installed by, the Warburgs and the Rothschilds and the Kuhn and Loebs and the Schiffs and all those other people, the Rockefellers. Okay. And Rockefeller is a Dutch name, right? But here's Donald Trump at Windsor Castle a couple weeks ago.
Your Majesty, Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. And if you think about it, it's a lot of presidents, and this was the second state visit, and that's the first, and maybe that's going to be the last time. I hope it is, actually.
I hope it's the last time that a president comes to Windsor, comes to Great Britain twice.
But this is truly one of the highest honors of my life. Such respect for you and such respect for your country. For many decades, His Majesty the King has epitomized the fortitude, nobility, and the spirit of the British monarchy and the British people.
So does this guy sound like somebody who's aware that the British monarchy is largely responsible for the death of 7 American presidents in office?
He's dedicated himself to preserving the glory and unique character of this kingdom, restoring life to the rivers and streams, supporting the works of its artists and composers,
the rivers and streams. So basically what they're doing is Charles wants to turn the world into a quote unquote national park that he owns, right? Because he doesn't want the peasants hunting on his land.
Trees and gardens in its countryside, and I just visited one of the most beautiful I've ever seen that you just completed, and protecting the architectural integrity of cities, villages, and towns. He has uplifted the poor, cared for rural farmers, and
have anybody watched Clarkson's Farm to see how well Charles is taking care of the farmers? Because it's not a pretty picture.
Tended to wounded veterans like nobody else. I'll tell you that I just stood in line and shook about 150 hands, and the King knew every single person and every single company, and some of them had bad names like XYZ-Q3.
You mean like a James Bond movie? You mean like something that a Freemason would say?
And he knew every one of them, or at least I think he did.
Yeah, because he knows the secret handshake.
Because nobody was complaining. I was very impressed with that. But I just want to say that His Majesty has also raised a remarkable son in His Royal Highness, Prince of Wales. Really amazing. We've gotten to know you, and I think you're going to have an unbelievable success in the future. Melania and I are delighted to visit again with Prince William and to see Her Royal Highness, Princess Catherine, so radiant and so healthy, so beautiful. It's really a great honor. Thank you. Many years ago, His Majesty opened his archives to a biographer. Among the documents was a letter from 1993 in which he described the patriotism and guided his many projects. He wrote that he was, quote, entirely motivated by a desperate desire to put the great back into Great Britain in the finest tradition.
The great back into Great Britain. That's what Cecil Rhodes wanted to do. He wanted to make the United States part of Great Britain again. That was putting great back into Great Britain. And they did that on December 23rd, 1913.
Of British sovereigns. He has given his whole heart, everything he's got, to those parts of Britain that are beyond the realm of mere legislation. It's not easy, but which define its essence and its virtue, its harmony and its soul. It's an amazing calling, and there's nobody that's answered that calling like you have. A fifth of all of humanity speaks, writes, thinks, and prays in the language born on these isles and perfected in the pages of Shakespeare and Dickens, and Tolkien, Lewis, Orwell, and Kipling.
Orwell.
Incredible.
It gets better.
People, unbelievable people like we have rarely seen before, probably won't see.
Yeah, rarely seen before, right? Because this again, people make fun of America for American exceptionalism, but British exceptionalism makes American exceptionalism look like a joke.
Again, the lion-hearted people of this kingdom defeated Napoleon, unleashed the Industrial Revolution, destroyed slavery, and defended.
They created slavery, and then they destroyed it, and then they blamed it on Americans.
Civilization in the darkest days of fascism and communism.
They invented communism. They sold opium to China and India.
The British gave the world the Magna Carta, the modern parliament.
The Magna Carta was the first bait and switch democracy document out there. I love the Magna Carta. I think it's great. It would be great if it actually worked.
And Francis Bacon's scientific method.
Oh, Francis Bacon. Here we go. Francis Bacon.
They gave us the works of
Locke, who, again, I fell for it when I was a kid. I fell for it 10 years ago, John Locke and Common Sense and, all that stuff. Locke was an imperialist. Locke was about contractual law. Locke was about slavery. Locke was, he's, but it gets better. Hobbes was Francis Bacon's secretary. Okay. He wrote Leviathan. Again, it's the economy of empire. Okay. Francis Bacon invented the empire. Hobbes was the economist of empire. I'm losing my mind here.
Burke, Newton, and Blackstone.
Newton stole algebra from Leibniz and took alchemy and called it physics. And Francis Bacon not only created science, but he created scientism, which led you to hear Fauci say, trust the science, okay? And for us to treat scientists as priests in this society, it's all nonsense.
The legal, intellectual, cultural, and political traditions of this kingdom have been among the highest achievements of mankind. Is really?
No, they've been the highest achievements of empire, not mankind.
Never been anything like it.
Yeah, that's true.
The British Empire laid the foundations of law, liberty, free speech, and
liberty, freedom that the empire bestows on you.
Individual rights virtually everywhere.
Freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. While he's making this speech in London someplace, somebody is getting their door knocked on for a mean tweet and being put in jail and fined.
Union Jack has ever flown, including a place called America.
The Union Jack is a double cross. Okay.
You know that place very well, don't you? His Majesty spoke eloquently about the bond which inspired Sir Winston Churchill, and the bust is in the Oval Office right now.
Yeah, he's got the bust of Winston Churchill, the guy who probably was at the top of the pyramid chain and taking out FDR. Okay. And his bust is in the Oval Office. Yeah, that's a great thing.
Now, the beautiful bust.
The guy who sank the Lusitania. Okay. The guy who withheld the information about the Japanese attack in Pearl Harbor. The guy, I can go on.
Winston Churchill to coin
the guy that Ted Cruz has tattooed on his arm, I believe.
Phrase special relationship, but seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it.
Look at the expression on Charles's face when he says special. The special relationship between the United States and Great Britain. You know what the special relationship is? You're our bitch, America. We own controlling interest in all your corporations, in all your banks, and you do what the hell we want you to do. That's the special relationship. It's the master blaster relationship. If you watch Mad Max Thunderdome, Master Blaster, Master is Great Britain. The little midget guy looks just like Charles here. And the blaster is the United States of America. That's the metaphor.
Justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language, and by transcendent ties of culture, tradition, ancestry, and destiny. We're like
destiny, as set out by Francis Bacon.
Two notes in one chord or two verses of the same poem, each beautiful on its own, but really meant to be played together. The bond of kinship and
I don't think Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and Andrew Jackson. I mean Andrew. What am I? I don't think the founding fathers thought that, Don. I don't.
identity between America and the United Kingdom is priceless and eternal. It's
I
irreplaceable
don't think they believe that.
and unbreakable. And
I don't think they believe that.
we are,
So what does make America great again mean?
as a country, as you know, doing unbelievably well. We had a very sick country 1 year ago, and today, I believe we're the hottest country anywhere in the world.
Is that like Paris Hilton hot? Like, what is he talking about?
In fact, nobody's even questioning it, but
Project Stargate, like, spending billions of dollars on AI, that means that we're hot. Like, what?
owe so much of that to you and the footing that you gave us when we started.
The footing that you gave us when we started. The footing that you gave us when we started. You mean the charter for Jamestown that Francis Bacon signed? Or like, what are you talking about?
Together, we've done more good for humanity than any two countries in all of history.
500 million people killed since 1913. 500 million people killed. Like, what are you talking about?
Together, we must defend the exceptional heritage that makes us who we are, and we must continue to stand for the values and the people of the English-speaking world, and we do indeed.
This is right out of Cecil Rhodes' will. Okay, this is right. He's quoting Cecil Rhodes' will.
Stand for that. On behalf of all Americans, I offer a toast to one of the great friendships, to two great countries, and to His Majesty, King Charles III, a very, very special man, and also a very, very special queen. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's great.
She had her rival killed. Yeah, she's really special.
Great honor to be with you.
All right, so I'm gonna jump out of this, and we'll jump back to Tucker for a second. We've been going for a couple of hours. Let me see if I got any questions here before let me take this out and see what we got. Do you guys like this? Do you like this format? Do you like what I'm doing here? All right, Melrose. I think this is my friend that went crazy because I was reading Shlomo. Is this a distraction against the debasement of the U.S. dollar? It's a distraction against. These things are distractions, period, against it. It's a multi-vector attack. Like our country is being, our country is being, I'll back up. Our country has been systematically dismantled since 1913. Okay. What is changing right now is the perception of the citizens, not only of the United States of America, of all of the Western countries. So the debasement of the U.S. dollar is part of it. They want to shift us over onto a tokenized economy where it's technocracy. Courtney Turner and Patrick Wood did an incredible 5-hour live stream this weekend, where if you want to know what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years, go watch that live stream. Spend 5 hours listening to the people explain to you what's going on. The US dollar is part of it, but money in general, they want to change our relationship with money. Okay. And basically they want to turn the world into a giant Skinner box, and we're all going to carry our Skinner boxes around with us, in our pocket. Right. And our Skinner box is going to tell us if we behave correctly, whether or not we're going to eat that day, whether or not we're going to eat some animal protein or we're going to have to eat crickets. Like that's the name of the game. So it is a distraction, but we're in a distraction war, which is why I want people to become aware of epistemological warfare and start questioning. again, I'm halfway through writing an article that I'll post tomorrow. But the article that I'm writing about right now is in a fact-free environment. That is, the problem with being in a war zone or in an epistemological war is that you don't know what's true anymore. And if you don't have the ability to know what's true, then the only thing that you have to go on in order to find veracity, in order to find truth, okay, is to look at the structure of the way the words are being presented to you, okay, in order to be able to see the cause effect statements, to be able to see the complex equivalencies, to be able to see the universal quantifiers. If you could see those, if you can recognize Tucker Carlson's mere agreement frame, okay, then your spidey senses go off and you say, oh, maybe I should stop this video, okay, and write down what he just said, or rewind it a couple of times like Peter did at the beginning of the show, and just watch it over and over again until I get to the point where I understand what a mere agreement frame is, okay? Because once you get to a point where you understand what a mere agreement frame is, you can see, oh, Kash Patel is doing that. Oh, Donald Trump is doing that. Oh, Rachel Maddow is doing that. Oh, Bill Maher is doing that. Oh, Jimmy Kimmel is doing that. Okay. You see it. Okay. Mere agreement frame, mere agreement frame, mere agreement frame. When you see it, when you can see the seams, you can see the edges, okay, of the arguments, you can start to make sense of things when you can see the edges of it. So the thing is about linguistics that I love is that you can see the frame. You can see, right now I got a frame around me, right? You guys can see this rectangle that I'm in, okay? You can start to see language the same way that you're looking at this video right now, okay? And if you can see language the same way that you're looking at this video right now, then you can tell when people are lying to you, okay? It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to find the truth, but the ability to recognize a lie is the first step in finding the truth, okay? Not falling for lies anymore is the name of the game. Christopher says, where does China fall in the occupation of shipping lanes? China is just a chess piece. Okay. China has been a chess piece since the Rockefellers went over and made a deal with the Tricoms. And again, it's all part of the same game. Russia is part of the same game. The United States was conquered in 1913. Russia was conquered in the 1990s. Okay. Because just look at, do they have a central bank? Is their central bank part of the World Bank system? Okay. Are they using the petrodollar? Okay. I know that they're trying to get around it with BRICS, but until Russia starts, until Russia and China separate themselves from the world financial system, they're just part of they're just another chess piece. So, I look at China is going to attack Taiwan and blah, blah, blah. That's just another way to pump more money into Raytheon and General Dynamics. And, that's just a way that's how you keep their stock high, right? Is that you continually create these false threats. Let's see, LT. Hi, Peter, your channel is the most valuable and important on YouTube. Your deep commitment to honor and honest and truth inspire me. Thank you. Thank you. I honestly, I appreciate stuff like this. And I'm just trying to make the world better for my kid, honestly, is what I'm trying to do. That's my motivation, and I'll stick to it. All right, Melrose, they took out FDR. Yeah, I think they took out FDR. If I'm trying to remember that there's a book on Duke Report Books called "Why Do the British Kill American Presidents?" and it's by Anton Chaikin, and there's really good evidence. I mean, cui bono. when there's an American president that is acting against the best results for the empire, they wind up dying in office. So yeah, check that out. I will take this out, and I've been going an hour. Let's say I'll go 20 more minutes. Let's see how far we get with the Tucker thing, and I'll go to the. I can't believe. Are we in the third video? Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Here we go.
The second thing we can do after getting global perspective on what we're actually talking about here, a tiny country that is in the deepest sense insignificant to the United States. The second thing we can do is get some freaking self-respect.
I think I already.
And stop being ordered around by a client state. That's not.
I already did that one. Wait, what happened? Here we go. Self-respect. I put this video. This video is very short, but I put this video in here too.
As a teenager, I heard John Kennedy's summons to citizenship. And then as a student at Georgetown, I heard that call clarified by a professor named Carol Quigley. Named Carol Quigley. Named Carol Quigley. Who said to us.
Okay, so I didn't make up Anglo-American establishment. Okay, this is a term that was coined by Carol Quigley. He started writing this book. I didn't realize this until recently. He started writing the Anglo-American establishment before he wrote Tragedy and Hope. It was published after he passed away, but he started working on this book in the 1940s. Okay, and you'll notice that on the cover that the American flag is upside down. Okay, I didn't make this up. Okay, Carol Quigley taught. He was the head of the history department at the Foreign Service School at Georgetown University for 30 years. Okay, he wrote Tragedy and Hope, which is kind of the Rosetta Stone of figuring this stuff out. Because he named names when nobody else did. When Peter Duke wrote his article a couple of weeks ago on the 60-degree cabal, okay, I'm inspired by Tragedy and Hope, where Carol Quigley does the best job of putting all of the people on that chart, okay, that I came up with the chart, but he did the more important part. He came up with the people that are on the chart. So he's not a nobody.
That America was the greatest nation in history because our people had always believed in two things: that tomorrow can be better than today, and that every one of us has a personal moral responsibility to make it so.
Okay, so Carol Quigley said that. And Carol Quigley also said in 1972 that our elections were rigged, and that they were meaningless in the United States of America because of the way that the two-party system was controlled and the way that the media was controlled. That Americans didn't have any agency in electing their political candidates. So he also said that, okay, and he said that when he was Bill Clinton's history professor. And by the way, he was probably involved in making sure that Bill Clinton became a Rhodes Scholar, a Rhodes Scholarship that Bill Clinton didn't finish because he went to Moscow for the CIA in the middle of his Rhodes Scholarship. So, a lot of people don't know that either. But speaking of CIA, let's just go back. We'll finish up with Tucker. We got 15 more.
So the third thing I think that would be very helpful to restore health and balance to the relationship between the United States and Israel is restore the concept of citizenship in the United States. If you're an American citizen, it means something. The first thing it means is equality. You are equal to every other citizen. There's no hierarchy of citizenship. All citizens are equal. Each gets one vote. Each gets justice before the law. That's the promise of the United States, and each gets to say exactly what he thinks.
Ask Roger Stone whether or not he thought he got equal justice under the law.
Thanks. period. Restore the value of citizenship. And the very first thing you would do if you cared about that, and you should, because the country can't continue without it, after you expelled everyone who's not a citizen from the country, which should happen immediately. They should be deported immediately for our own survival. But after doing that, the first thing you would do is not allow dual citizenship. Why would you allow that? You're a citizen of two countries. Can you really serve two masters simultaneously?
So dual citizenship. I have many friends who are dual citizens. And dual citizenship really just means one thing. It means you get to pay taxes in more than one country. Okay. So I don't know how, this isn't very long. Let's just let it go.
By the way, it's not just Israelis who have dual citizenship. Every nationality has dual citizenship in this country. It's not just Israel. And it shouldn't be allowed for a single moment. What is that? Whose side are you on? Don't accuse me of dual loyalty. Well, you're a dual citizen.
Well, it doesn't mean that you're on a side, does it? I mean, how many people are in the espionage business? I know that, there's a lot of people who work in companies that have national security. It's like, maybe nobody with dual citizenship should be working at Raytheon, but, I don't think Raytheon should be working at Raytheon.
Whether it's Argentina or Mali or Israel, not allowed. And moreover, you are not allowed to serve in a foreign military without losing your American citizenship. You're fighting for another country?
Well, only if you're fighting against the United States of America. I mean, again, this is kind of, again, what he's saying, he's being obtuse here, but there are people in the Senate there's people in Congress who are American citizens and Israeli citizens. I don't think that you should be able to be in government and have two passports, but I don't really care.
How can that be allowed? How can you retain your citizenship? By the way, why aren't you serving in our military? Every country.
Nobody should be in the military. Nobody should be in the military. When you understand the epistemological warfare that has been perpetrated on all of us, okay, the hundreds of millions of people that have been killed in the last 100 years for no good reason, forget it. Forget the military.
Has a different perspective on the world, and that grows from a whole bunch of different things: their history, their language, their size, their resources. But each country is different, and each country has a different set of priorities. And if you're fighting in a military for a country.
Yeah, and who sets the priorities, right? If you think the politicians are setting the priorities, that's the problem.
You are not serving America's priorities. You're taking up arms on behalf of foreign power. You're done. This would seem to be obvious. Many Americans have fought in Israel, in Gaza. Many Americans have fought in Ukraine, by the way, and a lot of other countries for foreign militaries. Lose your citizenship immediately. Of course. Obviously. It's amazing that even exists.
Oh, yeah, it does. But, the what are they called? G4 and Blackwater became Academy. It's like they hire all these people and then they ship them off.
And AIPAC has to register under FAIR, the Foreign Agent Registration Act.
AIPAC should register under the Foreign Registration Act. That's true.
Of the 1930s. Of course, it's a foreign lobby. There are a million of them. But it's only AIPAC that doesn't register. And it's only AIPAC that is somehow above criticism. It's a foreign lobby that is acting on behalf of a foreign government. It's its interests. Again, it's one of many, but it's the only one that doesn't have to register. And of course, it should register immediately.
All right, let's skip to the end here and see what he says. Because I'm trying to get to the end of the show here.
Reason to conduct any business like that in secrecy. It doesn't make things better at all. It doesn't make the person doing it stronger. It makes him weaker, actually, in the end.
All right, let's go to the last one. See if we can wrap this up. Citizenship and loyalty. Christianity and theology. All right.
And the last thing that I think we need to do to restore balance between the relationship between the United States and Israel, and to restore some sanity to the public conversation on this topic, is to get our theology right. And this is not a message aimed at Israelis or Jews. This is a message aimed at Christians, who are the largest group of Israel supporters in the United States. And their view of it.
Okay, so I'm just going to start by saying that I've made it clear on this show that I believe that what's going on in the Middle East is geopolitical. Okay, it's not religious. Okay. And when he makes this religious, then what he's doing is that he's pushing people into this religious frame. And what I like about the geopolitical argument is that I can show people a map and I can explain to you why, without any religion, okay, the wars that have taken place in the Middle East and in Europe for the last 100 years, last 200 years, okay, why they have been happening. Okay, if you understand what a thalassocracy is, if you understand what a seaborne finance economy runs on, if you understand that, okay, all of this stuff becomes very simple to understand. It's not complicated, right? But as soon as you start complicating it by making it about religion, okay, then I have to question your what's the word? Disingenuous, or your genuine, what you genuinely believe.
Israel is colored not just by sentimental attachment, which is fine, or trips to Israel, great, no problem, but by a Christian heresy, the oldest of the Christian heresies, which is that God somehow prefers some people based on their DNA. And of course, the whole point of Christianity is that that is no longer true, that there is no chosen people. The chosen people.
Again, we're going back into a false dichotomy here, okay? Because this is a frame that has been imposed on us. I don't know people, well, maybe I know a couple people, but most people I don't think this way. I think that there's a few people who are on TikTok and loud on Twitter who announce this stuff, but I'm not sure that if I went outside and asked my neighbors walking down the street what they thought about this, they'd probably just go, "What are you talking about?"
Or people who choose Jesus. That is the Christian message right there. It's not an anti-Semitic message, by the way. It's the Christian message. It's the core Christian message. And yet there are many, many self-described representatives of the Christian faith, the world's largest, who are daily sending a different message. And we should be very clear, whatever this is, it's not Christianity, it is heresy. And among the many examples we could pick, we're going to go, because we couldn't control ourselves, with Lindsey Graham. Watch.
To people in my party, I'm tired of this crap. Israel is our friend. They're the most reliable friend we have in the Mideast. They're a democracy.
Who's we, Lindsey? Okay. Again, there's a book that Robert Frederick was talking about called The 7 Ambiguous Terms. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. I'll bring it up. Anyway, this is a big deletion. Who's we? He wants you to think that the we is Americans. But the we is not Americans. The we is the Anglo-American establishment. That's the we.
Surrounded by people who would cut their throats if they could. This is not a hard choice if you're an American. It's not a hard choice if you're a Christian. A word of warning. If America pulls the plug on Israel, God will pull the plug on us.
God will kill you if you don't support Bibi Netanyahu. That's what he's saying. And there are cheers, unfortunately, cheers when he said that God will kill you. He will pull the plug on you like a quadriplegic in intensive care.
He's really good at making putting the picture in your head, the quadriplegic in intensive care. Again, this is another situation where I agree with Tucker, but I think his frame is wrong. Okay. Lindsey Graham is wrong because Lindsey Graham is representing the Anglo-American establishment, which is a thalassocracy, which is the controlling interests of the Fortune 500, okay, and the Fortune 2000, right? And it's in their best interest that there is as much chaos in the Middle East as possible. Okay, that's the truth. Okay. And it doesn't really have, and where I disagree with Tucker is that I don't think this has anything to do with religion. I don't think it has anything to do with being a Christian. I don't think it has anything to do with being a Jew. It has to do with geography. Okay. And The rest of this is false framing.
You're going to flatline unless you support the secular abortion on demand government of Israel. That's the Christian perspective, really. That God loves some people more because of their DNA. That is not the Christian message. That's the opposite of the Christian message. The Christian message is universal. That's the whole point of it. The chosen people in Christianity are those who choose Jesus. The entire New Testament is that story. And anyone who says otherwise has not read it or is lying.
Okay. I agree with him, his assessment, but that doesn't mean that people who haven't read it, that the choice is people who either they haven't read it or they're lying. There's a whole spectrum of other reasons why people could believe that. So he's ending here again with one of these dichotomy frames. And we need to just stop listening to people who are framing things as dichotomies, because it's how we got into this. It is the engine of divide and rule. Dichotomies are the engine of divide and rule. When people frame choices as take it or leave it, or it's this or that, okay, alarm bells should go off. And the alarms should tell you, you should be asking yourself the question, what are the other options? What are the other things? What are the other opportunities that are available to me because this person has presented two choices as the only two choices that you can have? Now, again, I'm a Christian, okay? I believe that what he's saying about Christianity is correct, but I don't know that it's applicable in this situation. And I certainly don't know that if people don't come to the same conclusion that he's trying to sell you on, that it means that one of the two choices that he's presenting. Again, this is the hypnosis.
God does not prefer you because of your DNA or anyone else because of their DNA, period.
I agree.
So the fact that people can stand up in the United States in 2025 and say something like that, and by the way, not even make the case, just invoke the power of God as a weapon. He will kill you. He'll pull the plug on your country.
This is a 3,000-year-old technique. Okay. People have been, there's a bunch of books. I should probably pull them up and show you, but Robert Frederick has made some great book recommendations on his podcast. And I'm trying to put his books on the Duke Report book section as quickly as I can, and I'll bring him up before we end the show here. Let's see what Tucker says at the end.
Unless you go along with this, we need more war. Listen to yourself. And it's not just Lindsey Graham; it's the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. It's a lot of people, some of whom are very nice people. People have dinner with them; they seem perfectly normal. But this is a heresy, and it's deranged. And you know it's deranged because it is a justification for killing the innocent. And in Christianity, if there's one thing that's crystal clear, it's that Christians cannot abide the killing of the innocent. People who have done nothing wrong cannot be killed.
I agree with you, Tucker. So why weren't you saying this when we were invading Iraq and we killed 1 million Iraqis?
That's a sin. You are not allowed to do that, period. And if you find anyone leveraging the message of Jesus to justify the killing of innocents, that person is committing heresy.
And what do? We stone them? Do we stone them?
So those are the four things I think that we probably should do right away to restore some balance and health, reduce the craziness in the relationship and the conversation about Israel.
All right. So that's the end of Tucker for me today. And I'm going to go and show you some things in the book section of the Duke Report. But I want to reiterate that I generally agree with many of the things that Tucker is suggesting. I don't like his frame in any of them. And that's because I think it's disingenuous or misinformed or something else. So I want you to notice that I said I gave you two things that it could be, and then I left it wide open. so that there could be all kinds of other reasons why Tucker Carlson doesn't understand Halford McKinder's frame of reality and the reason that the United States is continuing to persecute and prosecute war on behalf of the Anglo-American establishment and the British Empire. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He grew up going to dinner with people at the Pilgrim Society, maybe because somebody invited him, maybe because his dad said that he should go. But the Pilgrim Society is a propaganda arm of the Anglo-American establishment that is designed to sell this idea that British, as James Bond movies are, the purpose of James Bond movies is to make us believe that Great Britain is our closest friend. And nothing could be farther from the truth. They are not. The British people are. The people who run Britain, who are not the government. Okay, they're closer to the House of Lords. Candace Owens is married to a guy whose father's in the House of Lords. Those are the people who control Great Britain. Okay, they tell Parliament what to do. Let me go to my website here for a second. The Duke Report. Just pull it up. And I'm going to go to the book section. So I have been adding a bunch of new books to the book section, but the ones that I am working on right now, Robert Frank runs Robert. Sorry, I'm spacing. Robert Frederick. Robert Frederick runs The Hidden Life is Best, which I think is one of the best podcast substacks on the internet. And I think that he's got it set up like me. If you have money, you can give it to him. If you don't have money, you can listen to his stuff. But he has a great book list. And I'm going through his podcast, listening to it, and I'm putting his books up. And for every book that I'm putting up a 1,500 word summary of the book, so you can figure out what the book is about. I'm putting up links where you can find the book. If you want to buy the book, you can buy the book. If there are non-payment versions of the book available, I link to those too. And then I'm making a podcast for every one of the books using Notebook LM from Google. And if it's available on Kindle, you can get a free preview, right here on the site. So these books are being recommended by Robert Frederick. And the one that I was referencing when I was earlier was the 7 types of ambiguity. And this book is really about poetry analysis, but it gives you a clue in language about how you can use language to be ambiguous and what the psychological impact on the listener is of that ambiguity. So these are all forms of hypnosis at the end of the day. And I'm trying to make all of this stuff available in whatever form you want to consume it in. The reason that I particularly like these AI podcasts, here, I'll play a little bit of it here.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we really try to break down some complex ideas and make them accessible. Today, we're tackling a big one.
We really are. William Empson's 7 Types of Ambiguity. It's a landmark text from 1949.
So this is a 35-minute podcast that tells you about the book. It tells you about what's in the book. So I'm trying to make these things available to people. There's some people who like the robots. There's some people who don't like the robots. I'll give it to you. You can go read the book. You can buy the book. You can read a free version. You can read my 1,500 word summary. You can listen to the podcast. There's all different kinds of ways that you can consume the book. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring everybody up to speed on this stuff in whatever way they want to do it. So with that, I'm going to go see. I guess I have two more to, let me remove this and we'll go back to here. John Franco says, is the genocide in Gaza part of the plan of the Anglo-American Empire? Yes, 100%. Yeah. And again, I think that the big picture is they use religion and religious wars in order to foment praxis, right? They want a bunch of people to hate the Jews. Okay. There's no better way to get a bunch of people to hate the Jews than to kill a bunch of Palestinians. And they call it goal stacking. At the same time, they'll develop a bunch of real estate and they'll make a bunch of money. Okay. But they don't really care about people's lives. That's why they call the Freemasons refer to anybody who's not a Freemason as profane. Okay. And you know, they don't really care. So yes, the genocide in Gaza is part of the Anglo-American Empire. And they want you to think that it's a Jewish thing, but it's not. I mean, part of it is, but that's the conceit. That's not the motivation. Let's see. Did you ever see Spring 2024 cover of the Fabian Society? I don't know. Do you have a link? Maybe I did. I remember seeing a Fabian Society cover and commenting about it on Twitter, and I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. So if this is a guessing game, I lose. Paula says, is ambiguity doublespeak? No. Ambiguity is where you phrase something. Here's ambiguity. Make America great again. What is great? It's kind of ambiguous. Barack Obama, hope and change. Hope for what? Change what? Okay. These are, ambiguity is indicated by things that are missing that you fill in yourself. Okay. And it's audience specific, right? And so that's what William Empson talks about in his book. So something that's ambiguous is something that requires you to fill in your own meaning and the reason that it's dangerous is because people's egos get involved, and especially in politics, and they will fill in their own meaning. I definitely fell for it in Trump 1. But I was cured on January 7th, 2021 of that delusion, of my ambiguous delusion, my filling in what makes America great again. You know, for me, what makes America great again is the Declaration of Independence, and trying to come up with a system that fits the proposition of the Declaration of Independence. Clearly, I think the Constitution has fallen short of that. Doesn't mean it wasn't a good try. Doesn't mean that it can't be fixed. But the Declaration of Independence makes it has more better ideas in it, I think, than the Constitution. And with that, let me see. Somebody has said, have you heard of the religious views of Isaac Newton, which strengthens your case that the crown is pushing? Newton is, look, the more you find out about Newton, the more you find out that he was a fraud, that he was a drug addict, that he was into alchemy, that he's probably a plagiarist who accused Leibniz of being a plagiarist, that he took a lot of Gnostic ideas and then called them science. And he probably did that at the urging of Francis Bacon. And, you know, Newton is, Newton is just another example of what I don't like about Great Britain. And so when Donald Trump is, praising him, I'm embarrassed as an American. With that, I'm going to leave it there. If you want to support the Duke Report, go to thedukereport.substack.com and become a paid subscriber. That's the best way to support us. Short of that, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/thedukereport and you could buy us coffee, or you can buy my book, Stealth Power and the Illusion of Democracy, or you can go to the shop if you go to thedukereport.com and you click on the shop button, you can go buy yourself an edgy t-shirt. I bought a bunch of edgy t-shirts that I'm wearing a Oxnard t-shirt today. This is the Anarchy Yacht Club t-shirt that I'm wearing. That's from CaliforniaCut.com. But I'm buying I bought a bunch of Duke Report t-shirts that I will start sporting in the weeks to come. And with that, I will post a new post on Substack tomorrow. And thanks for hanging in with me, all of you. And we'll talk to you again next week. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.